What's going on, YouTube? I'm happy to report that the new Dogmatika support is insanely broken, finally making pure Dogmatika an actual good deck. Before I talk about the new cards and everything, make sure you leave a like and subscribe. It really helps out the channel a ton and keeps me motivated to make more videos like this one. So we got two new Dogmatika cards revealed for February for TCG players, October for OCG players, God knows when for Master Duel. We have the spell card, Dogmatikatrix, which is going to boost the deck's consistency and make it a lot better going second, and a new ritual boss monster that is possibly one of the most disgusting things I've ever read in my life, White Zoa of Dogmatika. So this is a level 12 ritual monster, which the level means absolutely nothing to this deck because we can just send extra deck monsters to the grave to ritual summon it. Its effect says that Dogmatika monsters you control are unaffected by your opponent's activated fusion, synchro, Xyz, and link monsters effects. This means even if the extra deck monsters are in the graveyard, or they're being brought back from the graveyard, or they're special summoned from somewhere else, your monsters are completely unaffected, including this one, which is insane considering it's 4,000 attack, 4,000 defense, so you need a main deck monster out or a spell or trap to remove this guy. Then he has a second effect where you can have your opponent apply one of these effects. They can send one card from their hand and or extra deck to the graveyard for every 2 cards in their extra deck. This means you're ripping a total of 7 cards from their extra deck because they're never going to choose their hand, let's be honest. Meaning combo decks are completely crippled now, and mid-range decks can't activate Prosperity or Extra without getting rid of their entire extra. This puts you in a really good position, especially considering this thing's a towers. But there's a second option that you can apply, and this one's more for going second. They can return all fusion, synchro, Xyz, and link monsters they control back to the extra deck. Now, I'm not 100% sure on this wording, and I haven't tested it yet, but I have a theory that this works against Arrival Cybers, Final Sigma, Psychic End Punisher, etc., because it's like your opponent applying the effect. It's not actually Zoa removing these cards. I could be 100% wrong about that, and please correct me if I'm wrong and I'll pin the comment, but someone told me that, and it kind of sounds like it could be right, so yeah, just let me know. Regardless, this is the win condition that the deck desperately needed, being able to bounce everything back to the hand or ripping their opponent's extra deck and potentially their hand later in a grind game. It's very easy to summon, it's easy to bring back out. This card is phenomenal, 10 out of 10. But we also have Dogmatikatrix. Dogmatikatrix says when activated, you can add a Dogmatika ritual monster or a ritual spell from your deck to your hand. And then if your opponent controls a monster, you can add a Dogmatika card on top of that. So going first is just going to make it easier to turbo out your Zoa or whatever ritual monster you want. But going second, it means you can get the entire package, the Dogmatika Calamity and the White Zoa. You use the extra deck monster as tribute fodder, so you don't have to worry about discarding monsters or anything. Just plop them on the field and wipe out your opponent's board. Or you can search for things like, you know, if you're missing the spell but you have the monster already, grab the spell and then grab an Ecclesia, a Maximus, a Fleurdelis. There's so many options, and it just really helps this deck go second, and I think that's great for control decks, having additional effects for going second to help speed it up. But that's not the only effect. You also have once per turn, if you control a Dogmatika ritual monster, you can look at either player's extra deck and send one monster from it to the graveyard. This time you get to choose, and what's cool about this is you can like snipe and look at your opponent's extra deck before committing to the Zoa thing, because if you see there's a bunch of things that can be activated in the grave, maybe you might want to hold off on that Zoa effect. But most of the time I actually use it for my own cards. Like if you're going second, you're not just going to add 2 Dogmatika cards, you're also going to be able to send Elder Entity and Tis to pop some cards. Or if you're going first, you can send things like Herald of the Arclight, Titaniklad, etc. There's so many plays that you can get going with this card, and I think this one might even be better than the ritual boss monster, if I'm being entirely honest. I'll go over the rest of the deck real quick. So we got the one Zoa. Again, he's easy to summon. You can bring him back from the graveyard. You only need one. You also only need one of the other rituals for the same reason. You have White Knight of Dogmatika. It's kind of a niche interruption, but it can definitely come up. It's basically a Dryden. You get to send Elder Entity Intis to the graveyard when your opponent activates a card effect, and you can also rip something from their extra deck as well. We have White Relic of Dogmatika. This one is really broken with White Zoa because it makes it so White Zoa can't be destroyed by battle, meaning access code cannot physically break your board. Also, when it's ritual summoned, you get to target 2 cards on the field and have one gain the attack of the other. So you can make your Zoa absolutely enormous, or you can just make White Relic 4,500 attack casually, and that doesn't wear off or anything. That's for like the rest of the duel. We have 3 Ecclesia to search out our deck. We have 3 Maximus to also search out our deck and send things to the graveyard. If you're worried about bricking on 3 Maximus, literally Ash Blossom, Effect Veiler, or Diviner of the Herald is 2 link monsters, so you can special summon him. 2 copies of Fleurdelis, it's a really nice hand trap and a beater. You definitely want 1 for an interruption, 1 for the grind game. 3 Diviner of the Herald, this is a must in any ritual deck because you can send Herald of the Arclight to search your ritual spells and your monsters, but it has some versatility going second because you can send Elder Entity Intis thanks to it being a fairy. I went for the most basic hand trap lineup, 3 Ash, 3 Veiler, 3 Imperm. Bell and DD Crow could definitely be good, especially in today's format, but this deck ain't coming out till February, so I'm just going with the most generic hand traps. 3 Nadir Servants, feels good to be playing this card at 3 again, just foolish and Rhoda, it's super broken. 3 Dogmatikatrix, I already went over how busted this is, but yeah, you want to always see it in your opening hand because it breaks boards, it makes your deck more consistent, it's just really good. The ritual spells, we have the 1 Dogmatika Calamity because this cheats out your ritual monsters by sending a monster with the same level from your extra deck to the grave. So with 5-headed dragon, we can just easily get out the Zoa. And then after that, for the rest of the duel, all you need is the Dogmatikamacabre, which can bring back your rituals from the graveyard or ritual summon them from the hand by banishing fusion or synchros in your graveyard, which you're already going to have thanks to Nadir Servant, Dogmatika Calamity, etc. So that's why I went with the 1-2 ratio. 1 called by because, like, why wouldn't you? 3 pre-preparation of Rites. Now, unfortunately, this card can't search for Zoa or Calamity, but I feel like it's worth playing because it gives you insane follow-up with the Macabre plus a White Relic or a White Knight. Again, White Relic plus Zoa is very disgusting. 3 Dogmatika Punishment. It's an interruption that also gets your engine going if you want it to, so I felt like it was worth maxing out, especially for the grind game. 1 Shaddoll Schism. This deck is notorious for being able to just send Apkallone like it's nothing and then summon Winda during your opponent's turn, so that's why we're playing the 1 Schism. For the extra deck, we don't summon much. The only thing you're going to summon is Shaddoll Winda with the Shaddoll Schism. You're going to do that by sending Apkallone to the graveyard, and Construct is something else that you can summon if you want to. We also have the Almiraj to link off the Diviner or your hand traps into, and then you're going to link off the Almiraj into Secure Gardna to make sure you have a link monster in grave for your Maximus to special summon itself, and the Secure Gardna will still be on the field for your Ecclesia to special summon herself as well. The rest is just graveyard fodder. We have 2 Herald of Arclight to search for ritual stuff, 1 Omega to be an interruption in our opponent's graveyard, 3 Intis to break boards, 3 Titaniklad because it searches out your entire deck, and 1 5-headed dragon to make Zoa really easy to summon. Okay, let me show you some replays. Our first duel, we're up against Blue Eyes. We're going to start off with a Nadir Servant, sending the Herald of the Arclight and adding 1 of the ritual monsters to our hand. We're going to use the Herald to search for Dogmatika Calamity. And Dogmatika Calamity is going to ritual summon the Zoa by sending our 5-headed dragon from the extra to the graveyard. Zoa is going to activate his effect, and they're going to send 7 cards from their extra deck to the graveyard. We're then going to activate Maximus, banishing our Herald of Arclight to special summon him. We're going to send 2 more cards from our opponent's extra deck to the grave. We're going to send Apkallone from our extra deck to the grave and Titaniklad, so we're going to be able to search for the Shaddoll Schism. And Titaniklad's going to be able to special summon Ecclesia during the end phase. Ecclesia is going to activate and add a Fleurdelis to our hand. So our opponent went -9 in the extra deck. We have 2 pops with Dogmatika Punishment. We have a Floodgate with Schism, and we have a hand trap with Fleurdelis. Our opponent's turn is going to start. They're going to activate Dragon Shrine, sending a couple of dragons from deck to grave. They're going to activate Dictator of D, who's going to special summon himself, so I chain the Shaddoll Schism, making the Winda. He committed to a special summon, so he's no longer allowed to summon, and he just loses the duel there. Our next game is against the most jank stun deck I have ever seen. I'm literally looking at 3 different pot cards, actually 4 different pot cards. He's gonna get the There Can Be Only One. He's gonna set some Phantom Knights card. I'm gonna activate Dogmatikatrix, and that's going to get me into my Zoa, and my Dogmatika Calamity is gonna cheat out my Zoa. I'm not going to commit any more to the board because I don't want to lose to like a Torrential or something. This guy's very susceptible to back row, plus I think a 4,000 beater is enough to do the job right here. I'm going to use Dogmatikatrix's second effect to send Intis from deck to grave, popping his back row. I'm going to hit the There Can Be Only One. I'm going to attack him for 4,000 damage and end my turn there because I don't want him to get like Eldritch cards in the graveyard because I was thinking that's a possible deck he could be playing. He's going to use his Prosperity. I see he's playing some weird Grand Maju variant of stun. He's going to grab the Solemn Judgment. He's going to activate Pot of Duality and grab another Grand Maju. and he's gonna normal Grand Maju. He's 4800 attack, which is enough to swing over my guy, so I'm just gonna effect Veiler him so he's temporarily 0. He's gonna set his cards down, end his turn. It's back to me. I'm gonna activate Nadir Servant, eating a Solemn Judgment. Then after that, I'm gonna activate my Dogmatikatrix's second effect to send an Intis again, trying to pop the Grand Maju. He's gonna flip up the Phantom Knight's wing, protecting him. Then I am going to activate my Ecclesia, who's gonna get hit with a Solemn Strike, but I have even more follow-up. I'm gonna activate my second Dogmatikatrix to add the Ritual spell and the Ritual monster because he controls a monster. So I'm gonna get the white Relic of Dogmatika onto the field, and when she's summoned, I can make my Zoa gain the attack of his Grand Maju, and we're gonna hit him for a shitload of damage. This game was against Resonators, and I get to go first, so that basically means I win. So I'm gonna normal summon the Veiler, which might seem weird, but it gets you a secure Gardna on the field and the Almiraj in the graveyard. I follow up with a Nadir Servant, sending the Titaniklad to the graveyard. I'm gonna activate my Maximus in hand, banishing the Almiraj, and sending my Apkallone and my Herald of Arclight to grave, and 2 of his cards to grave. My Apkallone's going to grab the Schism, discarding Ash, and then I'm also going to get my White Zoa. I'm going to activate the Dogmatikatrix to add the Dogmatika Calamity to my hand, cheating out the Zoa. I'm going to use the second effect to look at my opponent's extra deck, dump another card into the graveyard, and then we're going to use Zoa's effect to dump more cards into the graveyard as well. And then I'm going to set those 2 cards. End phase, I special summon Ecclesia, and Ecclesia is going to grab me a Fleurdelis. Back to my opponent's turn. I don't think they have really anything for this. They're going to activate a special summon, so I can just chain Winda, and they're just going to scoop to that. This one was against Heroes, and I was going second. They're going to normal summon Vion. I Impermanence because I don't want him to get any kind of advantage, but he's going to chain Mass Change, dodging the Imperm, sending the Shadow Mist to the graveyard. I will Ash the Shadow Mist, and now all I have left to deal with is the Dark Law on the field. So what I'm going to do is special the Ecclesia onto the field. Ecclesia is going to search for Fleurdelis. He's going to trigger his Dark Law effect, but I'm going to chain the Fleurdelis to negate it and special summon herself. We're going to normal summon the Diviner, sending the Herald of Arclight to grave, grabbing an additional Ritual spell for follow-up. I Ritual summon the White Knight, sending Titaniklad to the graveyard. We're going to attack, boosting Fleurdelis' attack, and just get some damage in. During the end phase, Titaniklad will activate, getting me an additional Fleurdelis to hand. So I have a hand trap, and then I have White Knight as an interruption. My opponent's going to normal summon the Decider. I'm just going to pop him because my attack is so low that he could just swing over me and then proceed to main phase 2, and that is going to make him scoop the game. My one loss against the deck was against Branded Eldritch, and I opened like ass, and they had Imperm, so not a lot of things going in my favor. They're going to Imperm my Ecclesia. I just set 1 and pass. Imperm and Veiler's pretty good, honestly, and against most decks this would be fine, but against Eldritch and being able to send Golden Lord off Branded Fusion, yeah, this guy is definitely going to kick my ass. So he does a lot of damage right there. I'm praying for like maybe another Dogmatikatrix, but we only get a Maximus with no extra deck in the grave. So that's pretty much the deck. I gotta say, I am very impressed with the new support. The boss monster is fantastic to sit on, but I think the real game changer is Dogmatikatrix. This card just gets so much value for free. I love how oppressive the deck is. I love how many layers of interruption the deck has, so you don't just lose to a Lightning Storm or a Dark Ruler no more. Your opponent needs multiple things, they have to play through something. But the best thing is that this mid-rangey control deck gets a huge boost when it has to go second, which is very welcome in something like this. The only bad thing about this deck is just the nature of Dogmatika. Sending your opponent's cards to the graveyard, you can potentially trigger some really devastating effects for yourself on accident, and that means if this deck ever became really popular, people would just start playing outs in the extra deck, and that's why I don't think it'll ever be like a tier 1 meta threat. But this is looking like some really nice rogue. Anyways, that's all I got for today's video. Again, leave a like and subscribe, it really helps, and I'll see you guys later. Peace.